So today we are talking blogging, specifically tips for new bloggers. In this video, I've got 5 tips coming from someone who's in the trenches, who's still a work in progress, and basically has done just about everything wrong at least once in this journey. In that first month blogging, there is so much that you have to do, right? Just to get started with your first blog. You have to pick the domain name, pick the niche, who's your host going to be, try to select a theme. Like, it's this overwhelming assault of decisions that you must make and have basically no experience or idea of what to do when you first get started. And there's a ton of content out there that will help you do those things, that will help you with the domain and the hosting. And I'm fairly certain that on my YouTube channel, there is some of that. So instead, let's assume that you have started your blog. Let's assume that you have chosen hosting, whatever it is, and you picked out an amazing domain name. And now you are sitting down in front of your computer and you're ready to complete that first month of actually being a blogger. So let's talk about the things that you need to do that first month, assuming, of course, that you've already done the other things to get started. Now, my tips, my thoughts on this are going to differ some from some of the other creators on YouTube that are touching on this topic. Before making this video, I actually did a quick search, tips for new bloggers, just to see what other people thought. And some of their advice I agree with, and some of it I really disagree with. I think in the first month, the thing that you must do more than anything else is create content and actually hit the publish button on something as much as possible. And while the other creators, they have some really helpful tips like setting up social media and getting Google Analytics and doing these other things that ultimately will be helpful in the future, the heart and soul of a blog is content. So if you're going to spend a week in that first month thinking about your 10-year plan, those are hours that you are not creating content. Hey, did I ask you to hit the like button somewhere in this video already? I probably forgot. I always do that. Will you hit it? It really makes a difference. Thanks. So my first tip is that a new blogger must clear the path, whatever is stopping them from creating content that they can publish. Everything you do in that first month, and not even just the first month, but the first 6 months, the first 9 months, needs to be about creating content. Setting up Google Search Console is a good idea, and I recommend it. But if it is something that seems technical and is not easy for you, then spending time that first month, spending maybe a whole afternoon trying to figure out how to do that, is time that prevents you from writing blog posts. So basically, in that first month, if it doesn't center around creating content, I would tell you just to push it off and do it later. The next tip that I have is in the vein of helping you create content. One of the things that happens, and I know this happens to me, especially when trying to push out a lot of content, is that I get stuck in the analysis paralysis of trying to make a decision about whether or not to write on a specific keyword. Or I will continue to do endless keyword research. Like, I will have a keyword and then maybe I'll go and look, and then before I know it, I've spent 2 hours looking at other blog posts trying to analyze, is this a good keyword? When you're first getting started, you may or may not know what a good keyword is or whether or not the topic is good. You have so much to learn. I take the position that I need as many reps as possible. So the other creators that I looked at made this recommendation, and I agree, is that you should create a content plan. I don't think it necessarily has to be in the form of a calendar, like publishing on Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever, but I think you need to have your content planned out in chunks, perhaps 10 articles or 20 articles or 5 articles, but spend the time organizing, maybe doing your keyword research or just planning. You say, these are the articles I'm going to write in this batch, and then after those go out, maybe I'll do more keyword research, or maybe I will look at the progress or how difficult it is to write on these, and then maybe go in a different direction. But if what you do is sit down at your computer every time and you start with researching for a particular keyword or for a particular topic, and then try to progress through the writing of the article from beginning to end, that will take forever. And not only that, because so much of the research that you do, you find keywords that are related to each other. And you should be writing content that is related, that you can link to each other. Do keyword research maybe in one afternoon. Make a plan for whatever block of articles that you want to write. Maybe it's 5 articles, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 100. And then when you have time to write an article and you go and sit at your computer, you do not let yourself start doing keyword research. You go to that list, to your content plan, and you pick one of those articles, and then you force yourself to just start writing that one. It might not be the one you want to write. You might not be that interested in writing it just right then, but there was a reason that you chose it. You might not remember why it was awesome, but it was. This will help you keep your content clusters tightly related. It will save you from wasted time. Believe me, I waste so much time doing keyword research when I should not be. I have like 100 articles in drafts that I should just pick and write instead of doing more keyword research. And it will also prevent you from creating content that is an outlier that might not fit in the website, at least for where it is at this point. The next tip is one that I am guilty of like over and over and over again, and that is starting something new before the current project, before your first project that is still in its infancy reaches any sort of level of success. Shiny object syndrome. I mean, it's our superpower, right? Like having ideas. That's why we got into this in the first place. But it is also a double-edged sword because you may find yourself distracted by tools or social media or other traffic methods. You can succeed doing lots of things all at once, but it takes longer. There's only so much time in the day, and there's only so much effort that you have available, energy to pour into something in a given day. Lots of us now, several years down the road, have many sites in our portfolio. And most of those sites are being neglected because we can really only focus our time and attention on 1 or 2 sites at a time. And in most cases, it means that those other sites are not reaching their full potential because we don't have the time and attention to put into them. When you start your first blog, when you are in your first months of the new blog, it's in the sandbox. It's not necessarily going to be growing that quickly, and you're going to feel like you should maybe do other things, maybe to help the site grow, or maybe to do something else that might work faster or just seems more appealing. Jumping off of your blog before it has a chance to really grow and develop into a place where it is a success could and would likely be the death knell for it. Like I said, I am guilty of this as well. So take it from me. If you are starting a new blog and you're in your first couple of months working on it, just do that. You will hear it over and over from people who have been in this space that content really is king. Once you have traffic, you can create an info product. Once you have traffic, you can work more on monetizing it. But until you figure out how to get traffic, especially in your first project, there really isn't any point in doing any of the rest of it. So in that first month, in that first 6 months, just work on that project. Don't start a new site. Don't buy domains. Don't even start making plans for the next project because it is distracting you from the site, from the project that needs 100% of your available time and attention to grow. So my last tip is this. Build a small support network. Find an accountability partner. It helps if they are in a similar position in life to you, like maybe around age or about employment or families. But ultimately, as long as they are like-minded in the amount of effort that they want to put in and how serious they are about it, it doesn't really matter. You are more likely to keep going and more likely to work hard on your blog if you are surrounded by people who are doing the same thing. Doesn't have to be a lot of people, sometimes just one person. And I don't recommend Facebook groups for this because it takes you to Facebook, a place that will suck up all of your time and attention if you let it. So let's go through some of these other suggestions. A common suggestion is to go ahead and in that first month, set up social media. I don't think this is necessary. I think that it can be time consuming to go and figure out the platform, figure out how to get set up. Sometimes you encounter frustrations or difficulties like with Pinterest. And when you are new to blogging, every one of these hurdles could be the incentive to just stop and not make progress. I think social media accounts are important, but not more important than creating content. Another recommendation I saw was setting up Google Analytics and Google Search Console. I do think that these things are important, especially because you can use them to monitor the health of your site and how it is doing, how it is growing, and whether or not everything is technically working well. But when this is your first site, it can be very technical. It can feel very technical because there's so much learning that happens. Sometimes this is a hurdle that people just can't get over. So when you first get started, I don't think it's necessarily the most important thing. Analytics, content. Analytics, content, content. Another suggestion was to go and submit your site for AdSense. I don't think this needs to happen in the first month. And in most cases, your site probably won't get approved for AdSense in the first month. Your first site with almost no content, it's gonna be a waste of time. Now, if your site already has a lot of content, I would tell you to skip AdSense and just go straight to Ezoic. The analytics in Ezoic are way better than you would get with AdSense. And if you have traffic, you're likely to earn way more money too. But if you want to try it out, the link is in the description of this video. In another video I saw, the creator suggested that in the first month of basically your first site that you sit down and make out your 5-year plan. Set out, your traffic goals and your money goals. At this point, especially if this is your first site, I don't think this is a useful exercise. One, you may not necessarily understand how your site is going to make money. So trying to guess about how much money you would like to be earning in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months, you could spend that time writing content. Thinking about where you would like to be 5 years from now with your first site. Again, when you don't barely understand how to operate your site and how to create content for it, in my opinion, that is just not that important right now. I know I've said this several times in this video, but I really think the most important thing that you can do when you are starting a new site is just focus on creating content, especially if this is your first site. Every single post that you publish, every single post that you write, every single time you log into WordPress and use it is experience that you can use as the foundation for building a successful blog. Once you know how to do that well, once it has become easy for you to do and you can do it on a schedule, the rest of it becomes so much easier. If you are thinking about starting a site or you have recently started a site, you should see 2 videos on the screen right now. One of those videos is month 0 of a case study series that I started in January of 2021. And the other video is a case study series that I started back in 2019, where I chronicle what I did and how I did it. So all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And believe me, there is plenty of ugly.